So we're starting a new mini-series every week. Just about just a couple characters. Feel like some of the lesser known or lesser. Maybe they as but some of the other characters in the Bible, they don't get as much or maybe some of the things that they did their life spectacular events that we moment they took small stuff used it own and when we landed on this idea there was a list of about one of these things was him of Mordecai. We're going to be talking about Mordecai. Story and how he got to really grasp Mordecai, we really have to understand. So I'm going to do like a 30,000 of the book of Esther. Before the very first page of years and years, there were kings in Israel. Israel kings, good kings, bad kings, and somewhat worse. Essentially, it leads to God allowing Babylon. Babylon comes in Nebuchadnezzar. That's where you see stories like Daniel. So that's part of the thing. The other part of the thing is that after this time in Babylon, Babylon was like the super the North region, and they were starting to get weaker and weaker nations. You have Jewish captives captured by Babylon, living in Babylon. Persia comes in and captures Babylon, so now you have Jewish captives living in Persia. That's kind of the cultural set, the historical set. So one of these, one of the main characters is King. And after his name is King Ahasuerus. But he probably knows him for the same person. King. Persia. And so in the first chapter of Esther, like that. Esther, Esther is chosen to go through this process of that going on. Choosing of the choosing of at the same time, we have this kind of secondary story of Mordecai kind of being at odds with this guy named Haman. Haman was someone who the king he liked him, he was valuable, and so he gave him a high position. Haman was not a good guy. He was a wicked guy. And so there comes this challenge between Mordecai and Haman. And this battle going on between them. At one point, the king declares that everyone should bow down to Haman. Haman when Haman walked by Mordecai, not that. And Haman, as a practical response, he said, you know what? I don't like Mordecai, so I'm going to wipe out his entire people. Which is not well. He doesn't like one person, so he just wants to kill everyone. So, at the end of the story, Esther was a Jew. She was in this position ability to have not to allow Haman to learn how to back. The end of the story ends with Esther I have a very quick flyby of the book of Esther. In there, so I encourage you. But that's kind of the 30,000 foot. Obviously, I want to zoom into as we do that. There's going to be some. We look at Mordecai. Have your Bible, open up to Esther. We're going to kind of bounce around in chapter. We'll start at 2. About Mordecai. He was bringing up another young woman had a we don't know why. But we do know when her parents, Mordecai, he didn't responsible, which I love this. Mordecai has his own. It wasn't just out of obligation. He loved Esther as his own daughter. And we may see this as like Mordecai being good, being a good family member. I want to just highlight this and say little step that launch. Mordecai didn't. also so continuing along in the story, I do want to give a warning. This part of the story, it's I also want to say God didn't stay away giving the verse that we read. One of the reasons why she was in Africa is because of this crucifixion. Lovely to look at. Really attractive. Sort of this selection process that King is looking for a place. I always have when I would read through this, I had this thought that they have a bunch of books of them all in a row on the line. The picture that I always had in my mind tells us exactly how this process happened. When in the evening, in the morning, evening, she would come in. She would go into the king room. She wouldn't come back out. When she came out in the morning, given went in under the care of a eunuch assigned to her. She came out under the eunuch assigned to her. She happened to be that's what Esther found herself out. The backdrop of what Esther is launching into. Remember, you have an option. You have the opportunity to even if the word no came out of her mouth, words. Would it anyways? Probably. That the concubines with normal typical the concubines were owned by the king. That second line here, go into the king again. What would happen is young virgin would enter into the chamber. She would come out at that point forward. You had a property lecture to some opportunity. You know what? Come back. This is what I'm going through. She is bearing her son. Remember that Mordecai loves this girl. who loves having to walk that in his life. I can't understand. I'm going to back up a few words. Walking through orders when young women were down. Also, young woman and children had feeling she knew what it was in the mind of a young woman gearing up for that. Can you imagine? In all of that, it was an impossible decision. He knew that's what was coming. He also knew that probably was not when he was given the choice food and he knew that if the king did knew she's a woman in the court along with what I do know is that the very next every day Mordecai walked we do know that in this story, at another point in the story, imagine Mordecai going to every day to pick up on his daughter. God be with her. Making doing everything because she was walking perfectly forward from God. Hope. After dad in the room and man, if that's hard. Mordecai there's been some stories that this parent there's been some small steps in them of those little and at the same time the reality is stand up for people. I know that my children will face this. I will not know. Loud, people need to know the body. That body is and Mordecai was 3 days. But because Mordecai did that, he took the full step of that. He took the next step of walking loving her very fully. And out of that, out of that category, he actually discovers this fascination of those days, Mordecai was sitting at the king's camp of the came to go probably was not a huge surprise. And what's happening is these 2 guys, these eunuchs, plotted this attack. King gets told, finds out what's going on, to get recognition. Anything right away seems I want to stop also to build up his character and he is that's going on, this kind of family drama, this family mentioned, Haman hated Mordecai, and that's kind of our honest. When you read the story the first time, it kind of seems like Haman hates Mordecai because Mordecai didn't mention that's really true. But there's also a lot of back a lot of context. And verse 5 says this: there was a Jew in Susa who was named Mordecai. If you were a Jew, if you were an ancient Jew reading the book of Esther, and you came to this, you would pause on the case because you immediately recognize that man as royalty, another son of Kish that stands out. King Saul. Saul was the son of Kish. I want you to keep that in your back pocket. King Saul, son of Kish. We're going to come back to that here in just a second. Haman also has when he is introduced in chapter 3, verse 1, it says, after these things, find out here, the ancient audience reading this, is Haman. That's a weird word. The Agagites are not really a people. The Amalekites are the people. And what the author is doing here is telling us this story that happened in Israel was first being led out. Traveling through they travel as it were. Typically what would happen is that people would march forward and for a slower. All be towards the back. And what happened is the Mordecai seemingly letting them and when they strong moved past them. I'll forward a little bit. Carrying out a war against the invisible people. So the king of Israel, King Saul, battles the king of Israel, King Agag. Agag is one of the wicked kings. It's not this battle of two warring nations, but the spirit of the God of Israel battling God of cosmic clash but also a physical battle. And what God told King Saul is go in and wipe out their wickedness. Cleans him up. One of the guy in me that likes war movies, warriors. One of the stories I always we learned about this. is a God. So when we read that Haman is right, his lineage is the lineage of Mordecai, same lineage of Saul, moving up into the lineage of God. It is a what's going to happen. Reminder of the biblical Mordecai. But I know you have power and in command over all of the officials. I know you have power. That ends up being the thing that gets in the name of God. Thing about similar to the faithfulness to God alone, even in the midst of doing he loves well, he loves serves her well. The other thing is that Mordecai stepped out. End of the story. It reads like Mordecai is the one who is championing his work is salvation. That with that, along with you God working with you, these are the two parallel plot points: family drama and is unique because God is everything. His name, it doesn't talk about when we're talking about stepping out in faith, fulfilling what God wants to do, proving God, how do we know? God doesn't mention, but how do we know that's what answer that. Names are a really big deal. I believe names are all have a name. Our job talking about warn you really get studying words and studying the word I do want to say, if you get Esther in Hebrew literally is being in. You have to understand, languages are very similar with one another, so you can say a name or you can say a word, and it can be one thing in Hebrew, same word. So in Hebrew, it would be stone. In Persian, it means the other thing is that most scholars know that Esther sounds very similar to Babylonian. In Babylonian God of one of the more worship idols. Are a four-step power, which is pretty accurate with the story. I mean, besides her true nature, she is the star. She is chosen as the queen. She is the one that is most favored. And how does she get there? By this is the story of Esther. And if you were reading this, you would know when Esther was introduced to the story, you would be like, oh, this is Esther. It foreshadows the entire book. Mordecai is similar to the combination of literally Mordecai. Question. Like Esther, his name also sounds very similar to the Bible. I say Mordecai, they would have said more like very similar. Marduk, Babylonian pantheon, attributed with building Babylon, establishing Babylon, and this is often associated with Israelites. Marduk was considered the king of the gods of Babylon. He's known for justice and justice. Famously, at the beginning of the Babylonian Marduk won all things. He defeated chaos. From that event, that's a lot to take in. First of all, I just want to say, we don't have to be scared of that. And second of all, that's our eyes. So when I talk about that, I mean nothing else other than that. But it is important to the story. And I know that this is a lot kind of take in. The gist of it is this. Marduk, Babylonian, when you look at Mordecai, I need to back up. Um, Mordecai was the great one, the chief of the Jews, the great one, desiring justice. And similar to Esther's life of Mordecai, over and over, desires justice. When the story ends with Mordecai being the judges. To look at these two things, Esther and Mordecai. Wow, that's the story of this book. They did these things. Mordecai did those things. But how do their names point to Babylonian gods, point to Yahweh and God's faithfulness? If their names sound like Babylonian gods, and in fact, Mordecai in the Persian, his name would have literally translated as servant of Mordecai. How does that translate? The thing is they're not their own. I know this is kind of deep. Esther is the name that she was not the name that she full short line. Literally means a myrtle was a flower, it was a plant. Throughout the story of whenever myrtle is used, it's often referred to as a symbol of God's blessing. Myrtle, star-shaped. Did Esther use her sexuality? Did she do things that reflect her Babylonian name? The same is true of Mordecai. Mordecai, Babylonian or Persian, was really oppressed. The thing about Mordecai is he gets a few, not just his father's name and father's father's name. Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Nice, all of these names here means shine a light on to become. It literally means someone who you combine all of these names, Mordecai, Jair, Shammai, and by the way, it means son of the right. You combine all those into one definition of who Mordecai is. Mordecai is down in the son of the right hand, fully crushed and pressed, bring right. Sounds like someone else. Culture and name that the Lord gave them a true name that all of them, the whole of who they are. He called them to culture. To Esther, you're pretty. You're good for sex. That's your purpose. Go and walk in it. God said, I have called you to be more than just look, more than just. The culture said to Mordecai, you will serve idols. You will serve the chief. God said his life would actually point people to Christ. This famous verse. I want to read it, but I also want to kind of back up. The king's servant. And the one Mordecai was. And Esther told them, Mordecai do not silent. Who knows? Whether you not Mordecai is saying he knows this law. He knows the law that if Esther maybe your whole reason is not just to look pretty and beautiful, but maybe the reason that God has called you is just time to. So when we look at Mordecai, he becomes part, a precursor to calling out the true name, calling her to essentially walk. Man, this is the picture of the gospel. It is the gospel, and Mordecai is leading calling it. I just want to put the question. What would the story of Esther look like? name is my and my surroundings and my life, my situation, they come to me. My life ought to be called liar, inadequate. All names that at some point I have either myself or been called. God gave me a I am not those things. My name is David. The Hebrew of really that's a dangerous thing to say because any means in the world. But when I step out and live the way God say the things I'm not a failure, I'm not a liar, I'm not a fake, I'm not quit. With the, 95, 99%. Actually, London earlier, no, 5 minutes with this guy. You know what your name means? Hopeful love. Hopeful love is the Bible. What it means. Love it. God is speaking a name over your life. He is calling you to something. And maybe your name, if you go home and you a moment of, or maybe you go home and you're like, I don't know what that's all about. And maybe it's because God is the amazing truth is that God has named us, He has invited us. Just like Mordecai, just like He did through Mordecai, trusting in Him, believing that His ways are better, walking in that news of the gospel. Gospel what's that name? Things that Mordecai taking that